What if you love your partner, want a family, and do everything right? But the system makes having a child feel like a luxury you can't afford? For Sarah and Mark from Phoenix, it's not about fertility, not about fear, it's about numbers. A $400,000 house, $1 to $200 a month in rent, a medical bill for $8,000 after a routine checkup, and a single estimate for childbirth, $35,000, yet before diapers, daycare, or time off work. They want kids, but right now they're choosing survival over parenthood. This isn't rare, it's the new normal. If you've ever looked at your paycheck and thought, I can't even afford to try, this one's for you, and if you haven't, hit subscribe. Because this is the conversation America isn't having until it's too late. Sarah and Mark aren't young. They're not reckless. They're in their early 30s, both working full-time jobs. She's a speech therapist. He's a project coordinator at a solar company. They met in college, married 2 years later, and always assumed kids would come when the time was right. But year after year, the time never came. Not because they didn't want it, because everything kept getting more expensive, and their lives kept getting more fragile. They live in Phoenix, where housing prices have jumped over 60% since 2020. Their 2-bedroom apartment? One that was $50 a month. No yard. Thin walls. But it's the cheapest thing within 20 minutes of both their jobs. They looked into buying. Found one house? 1,100 square feet, built in 1982, no AC upgrade, listed at $420,000. Their realtor said, "You'll be bidding against cash offers. Good luck." So they stayed in the apartment and started talking about kids. But then came the numbers. They sat down one night with a spreadsheet. Not romance, but necessity. Daycare in Arizona averages $13,000 a year per child. That's more than rent. Health insurance has a $7,500 deductible, one emergency, and they're out a month's salary. Maternity leave? 12 weeks. Unpaid. She'd lose $9,000 in income. And the birth itself? Even with insurance, they were told to expect $5,000 to $10,000 out of pocket. Some people walk out with bills twice that. They added it up. First year of a child's life, easily $30,000. Minimum. And that's before they'd need a bigger place. A car seat, a second car, a stroller. Baby-proofing, sick days. The reality that one of them might have to cut hours or quit. They looked at each other and said the same thing. We can't risk it. Not because they don't want a baby, because they're terrified of going broke. And here's the hard truth. Sarah and Mark aren't outliers. They're the new majority. A 2023 Pew Research study found that 56% of Americans under 40 say they're having fewer kids, or no kids, because of financial instability. Not because they don't want them, because they can't afford the risk. And it's not just housing and daycare, it's the whole ecosystem of American life. Healthcare that treats pregnancy like an elective procedure, paid leave that doesn't exist in most states, wages that haven't kept up with inflation, student debt that follows people into their 30s and 40s, a culture that says, just work harder. While ignoring that 2 full-time jobs still aren't enough, we love to say, kids are the future, but we don't act like it. We don't pay parents. We don't support families. We don't build cities for them. And then we wonder why birth rates are at their lowest in over a century. But here's the myth we keep repeating. If you really want kids, you'll find a way. That sounds noble, until you realize it's like saying, if you really want to buy a house, just stop buying coffee. It ignores the scale of the problem, because this isn't about budgeting, it's about broken systems, and Sarah and Mark aren't failing. The system is. They've saved $28,000. They've cut every non-essential. They don't travel. They cook every meal at home. They haven't taken a vacation in 4 years. But savings aren't enough when the goalpost keeps moving. In 2020, they thought $50K would be enough to start. Now, they'd need $80K just to feel safe. And every month they wait, they get older. Fertility drops, the window closes. She cries sometimes, not because she's sad about her life, but because she grieves a future that feels slipping away. He stays quiet, but he keeps a folder on his phone called Baby Fund. Every bonus, every tax return, he adds it, as if saving enough will somehow make it possible. But they both know it's not just about money, it's about stability. It's about not living one flat tire away from disaster. And in America, for millions of people like them, that kind of security doesn't come with a job. It comes with luck, or inheritance, or a spouse with a six-figure salary, or parents who can help with the down payment. And if you don't have those, you wait and wait until someday becomes never. Now, before we get to what this really means, I want to hear from you. Have you or someone you love postponed having kids because of money? Do you feel like the system failed you? Or do you think people just need to tighten their belts? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This is one of the most personal, most painful conversations out there. And the more we talk, the less alone we feel. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe. Because next week we're diving into another story of a dream delayed. Not by choice, but by circumstance. Now, let's get to the heart of it. Because this isn't just about babies, it's about what we value and what we're willing to protect. Here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. Not being able to afford children isn't a personal failure. It's a national one. Because in almost every other developed country, having a kid doesn't mean risking financial collapse. In Germany, parents get over a year of paid leave. In Sweden, daycare is capped at 3% of your income. In France, the government pays you to have children. But in the US, we treat parenthood like a side hustle, an expense, a choice you make only if you can already afford a safety net most people don't have. And that's the real crisis. Not that people don't want kids, it's that the cost of raising one has become a luxury good. Let's be clear, Sarah and Mark aren't lazy. They're not irresponsible. They're not bad with money. They're two people doing everything right in a system designed to make the next right step impossible. And this isn't just about emotion, it's about data. The average cost of raising a child from birth to 18 in the US? $310,000. Before college. US Department of Agriculture. In 1970, that number was $19,000, adjusted for inflation. That's a 500% increase in parenting costs, while wages rose only 200%. Childcare in most states costs more than in-state college tuition. 1 in 4 mothers in America go back to work within 2 weeks of giving birth. Not because they want to, but because they have to. We act surprised when birth rates drop, but how can we expect people to build families when the foundation keeps crumbling beneath them? This is where the myth falls apart. Just wait until you're ready. But what if you're never ready? What if ready means having $100K saved, a paid-off house, and no debt? Things most Americans won't achieve until their 50s, if ever. And by then, biology doesn't care about your savings account. The deeper issue? We've privatized parenthood. We expect individuals to absorb the full cost of raising the next generation, the teachers, the nurses, the taxpayers, the future workers, while treating it like a personal lifestyle choice, not a societal investment. Other countries understand kids are infrastructure. They fund them like roads, schools, and hospitals because without them, the whole system collapses. But here we leave it to luck, loans, and family loans. And then we wonder why young people are saying no. Sarah and Mark aren't giving up because they don't care. They're pausing because they care too much. They don't want to bring a child into a life of stress, debt, and constant fear. They want to be good parents, which means being financially stable. But the system makes stability feel like a fantasy. So they wait, and save, and grieve quietly. But here's the most important thing. Choosing not to have kids because of money doesn't make you selfish. It makes you realistic. And in a country that glorifies family values, we should be asking, what good are values if they don't come with support? Because love doesn't pay the daycare bill, hope doesn't cover the deductible, and someday doesn't stop the clock on fertility. This isn't just a personal story. It's a warning, a generation is being priced out of parenthood. Not by choice, not by ideology, by math. And if we don't start treating children like the future they are, like instead of an expense, we might wake up one day in a country that forgot how to grow. So, what did Sarah and Mark learn? They learned that wanting something deeply doesn't always mean you can have it. Not because you're not trying, but because the world isn't built to support your dream. They learned that financial readiness for parenthood in America isn't just about budgeting or discipline. It's about timing, luck, and how much risk you can survive. And they learned that grief can come not just from loss, but from almost having, from standing at the edge of a dream and having to step back. What would they change? They wouldn't stop saving. They wouldn't stop talking about it. But they'd have had the conversation earlier, and not just about wanting kids, but about what it would really cost. Long before emotions clouded the numbers, they'd also ask for help sooner, not just from each other, but from therapists, financial planners, even family. Because this kind of decision shouldn't be made in silence. And is this really a failure? No, because they're still choosing love, still building a life, still showing up for each other every day, even when the future feels uncertain. And here's the thing, they haven't said never. They've said not yet. And that small phrase, it's full of hope. Because while the system is broken, it's not unchangeable. We're already seeing shifts. More companies offering fertility benefits. Some states experimenting with baby bonuses and subsidized childcare. Cities building more family-friendly housing. And a growing movement of young people demanding that parenthood be treated as a right, not a privilege. It's slow, it's uneven, but it's real. And for every couple like Sarah and Mark, there's a quiet strength in knowing they're not alone, that thousands are having the same conversation, that more people are starting to ask, why is it so hard to do something so human? So if you're watching this and you're in the same place, know this. Your love for a future that hasn't come yet still counts. Your grief is valid, and your choice, whether to wait, to adapt, or to find another path, is brave. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you or someone you love postponed parenthood because of money? Do you still hold hope? Or have you made peace with a different future? Share your story in the comments. Not to fix it, just to be seen. Because sometimes that's the first step toward change. If this resonated, hit like. It helps others find this video when they're searching for answers. Or just need to know they're not the only ones. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Because every week we're telling stories like this. Real lives, real struggles, real hope. Because here's the truth. We can't fix the whole system overnight, but we can start by talking about it, by naming the cost, by saying out loud, this shouldn't be this hard. And maybe, just maybe, enough voices will turn a whisper into a movement. Until then, keep going, keep hoping, and remember, even in the waiting, life is happening, and that's worth something too.